Hello and welcome to this. This is a reaction video to a news coverage that the far left have made on Elon Musk buying Twitter. Obviously, that was a joke. Don't think necessarily you should be getting at the far left for being far left. Like, yeah, you want people to be equal. Yeah. Yeah, you say that's a bad thing? Because, Jesus, that's dodgy. But, you could argue some people are actually not left. Then, they just claim to be left, but they're actually not left-leaning. But basically, and getting down into it, this is basically Novara media. And that's, this is going to be a little bit critical, and also a little bit, like, it's not, usually I'm not very critical of them because they don't have any bad takes. But in this case, some of the takes were interesting.
Elon Musk's dalliances with purchasing Twitter have been an on-again, off-again affair. The world's richest man first offered to buy the company.
Probably because once if you are trying to buy media coverage, you realize if you've got a social media site that has like 500 million viewers, it's a problem. And this me see with YouTubers all the time. It's like, yeah, and hello, today's sponsor, my product. You can go use my link in the description and choose my products thing. Then they only ship to the US. It's like, if they only ship to the US, right? Your viewers number around, let's say, 5 million. Now, yes, the US will comprise of the majority of your viewers, but as a percentage, will they be more than 50%? I don't know. Like, yes, the US does have more people in proportion watching YouTube than other countries, but still, you still will have a ton of viewers who aren't from the US. You'll still have a ton of viewers that won't apply to. You'll see products advertised basically in Spanish. Like, but that doesn't work. Like, I'm not able to buy that. Or if I am able to buy that, I don't want to buy that because that's no use to me. It's like, in essence, if you're buying a social media platform and you want American political power, because those are people who have power over you, obviously, like, you don't need people in, Germany to allow you to do something. It's like, but you live in America. America is where you have America is where the regulators are able to say, you know what, Elon? We've decided we're not going to let you leave the country. We're just going to take all of your assets and give them to the people. So, yeah. Enjoy having around 200 billion scraped from your accounts. That kind of thing. Basically, what I'm saying is, in essence, those who really want to convince, those who really want to have power over. And obviously, you can choose direct power through bribery in the form of lobbying, or you can choose more indirect power through, controlling the news. And that's the problem. How many people on Twitter are Americans? And how many people on Twitter are Americans who, are not just going to vote for you anyway, Like, you have to discount your followers to begin with. If you're buying Twitter, you're controlling a news outlet. So realistically, though, it doesn't really matter. It's like if it was like if Rupert Murdoch was a famous celebrity and everyone loved him. It's like, but why, Rupert, do you need to buy media outlets if you already have a loyal following that will do whatever you say? If you already have a loyal following, although people have said most of Elon Musk's Twitter followers are bots, so that might say, But, basically what I'm saying is, if you've got a large following, you have to argue, well, why not just use the following to have power? And then instead of actually having to buy these things. So, not necessarily a great purchase, because I think that was the thing that you realized, which was like, well, you're just getting political power, but at what price? Like, 44 billion when you can just, like, buy, or, like, set up an Android phone company, I'm sure a lot of people would definitely, as fans, and then they would contribute to more people buying it, would love to buy an Elon phone. Jesus Christ. Don't give any ideas. Jesus Christ, no, that'd be awful. Next thing your phone starts, its battery just like traps you in a bubble and you just die in a roaring inferno. It's like, yeah, it's the Elon way. Yay! Just like a Tesla, there's no escape from death.
Company in April after having built up shares in it earlier in the year.
Around 10%.
But by the summer, he had changed his mind. Musk claimed that was because Twitter had misled him about the number of fake on the site. Most people, though.
First of all, his followers are apparently comprised of mostly fake accounts, so maybe don't go down that route. Like, I want to remove all fake accounts. Oh, my followers just dropped to like 1 million. Although technically we would argue having a large following will lead to a larger following. So, like, for example, right now, as time of recording, I've like 2 subscribers on this channel. Now, the thing is, right, is that those 2 are unlikely to get, 100 people to subscribe. They won't go, oh, 2 subscribers, I'm going to subscribe. But if you see, 60 million, 80 million, then you go, oh, follower, subscriber, all these things. Because you think they must be trustworthy because they're followed a lot. So yeah, technically having a very large following will lead to more following than if you just didn't. But
Thought he'd just realised that the $44 billion he'd initially offered made the firm vastly overvalued. Following that,
Twitter is overvalued, though. So is Tesla. People misunderstand this, and there's a problem with the stock exchange, really, which is that because you're not trading in a company's actual dividends, because you're now, instead of just going, oh, I want a dividend of 100 quid, so I'm willing to put down 1,000 and then having this investment for over 10 years. Instead, you're saying, no, I know I won't get any dividends, or I know I'll get very little dividends, but what I want is I want to buy in so that I can sell off later on. This is the same problem you have with cryptocurrencies, where there's no actual value. Like, there's no actual physical value set. So what happens is, what you're doing is you're basically gambling. And that's what stocks are. Now, of course, there's some safer stocks you can invest into, but most big tech companies are always in the position whereby you have to buy in order to sell. That's the idea. Increase the value of the stock and boom, sell it off. Which is what Elon Musk has done already. Massively increase the value of the stock and sell them off. And that's a problem ultimately all the time with these things. Buying up a product and then pumping up its value and selling it. Sometimes it's pump and dump scheme. Sometimes it's just sort of like you buy in, let others pump, and then you dump. But basically, most major tech companies are way overvalued. Tesla has has it ever made a profit? I don't think it's ever made a profit on government subsidies. That might be out of date. Maybe they made a profit this year or last year. But I know until very recently they were making a profit, and then the first few years they began to make a profit was because of government subsidies and because of kickbacks and because of carbon credits that the government gave them, which they then sold on. Basically, they're not a very successful company in monetary terms. But the point is, because of the way our economy is structured, you don't need to be. Because you can vastly inflate a company's value. Like, if you have a 50% share in a company, and the company's never made a profit, but you manage to rocket the company's valuation up to 1 trillion, you have got 500 billion. That is my point. Inherently, this is a problem, which is, Twitter's overvalued. So is Tesla. That's how he has his money.
Following that change of heart, Twitter executives took Musk to court. They, of course, quite liked the idea of Musk overpaying them for their company. And now the deal has been closed. This Wednesday, Musk posted...
I believe, actually, the share price actually went up to almost around the point that he would have paid. Because, what was it? Like, he paid like 55 per share, and it went up to like 53. So, obviously not exactly so, but he got a much better deal than he had been getting beforehand.
Did this video? So,
I guess if you're a billionaire, that's something you could do. Just buy a sink for a joke. Bit cringy, but I mean, like, who the hell is recording that though?
So it's not a particularly subtle pun, but in case you're listening to the podcast, that was a tweet that said, entering Twitter, let that sink in. And Elon Musk is walking into Twitter HQ with the sink. Clearly, he's an intelligent man. That's how he managed to start a bunch of very successful companies. But the humor.
Okay, first of all, I'm just going to address this. Just to address this, he didn't start a bunch of successful companies. Okay. Also, Michael, if I gave you a large portion of wealth, and I said to you, okay, so what I want you to do is turn that. Let's say I give you 100 quid. I said turn that into 1,000,000. That would be almost impossible to do without being somewhat successful, but also being exploitative. But if you're a person who's left wing, it's kind of important for you to understand that wealth breeds wealth. If you are a rich person and you've got 1,000,000 quid, you can do a lot more than someone who's got 100 quid. 100 quid person will find it a lot harder to turn into 1,000 quid than someone with 1,000,000 to 10 million. Because the more money you have, the more money as a percentage you can make. So just don't tell me, oh, he set up a bunch of successful companies. First of all, Tesla, he didn't start, so let's get that across. Also, can I discuss, like, this is like someone saying, oh, Mark, clearly you're very intelligent because you invested billions into a company and then you devalued your stock because you did that. No, Mark, that was a stupid thing to do. However, of course, if the metaverse is very successful and Facebook is the one to lead the way, it probably would be a smart decision. If it's a bet, that's sort of the point. This is the kind of arguments you hear from people who are like right wing, like they took the risk with their money. It's like, well, I mean, they didn't have to. If I've got 1,000,000 quid, if I've got like 10 million quid, why should I be rewarded for putting more than I should be worth on the line? Maybe just don't let the person have more than that. Maybe just have it state owned or something like that. I don't know. Just like, come on.
Somewhat crude. He tweeted this today. The bird is freed. 278,000 retweets. And his Twitter profile now looks like this. His bio simply says, Chief Twit. I kind of prefer that to the sync joke, I think. Since taking over, Musk hasn't wasted any time making big changes at the company. He has already reportedly fired Chief Executive Parag Agrawal, Chief Financial Officer Ned Segal, and Legal and Policy Executive.
The former CEO got, I believe, 45 million. That's not because of Musk, by the way. That I think that's a prearranged thing. In April, I believe, when there was talks about things like that. So just to make that clear, it's not like, oh, Musk gave him 45 million. No, it's like just in general that's what the severance pay was supposed to be. So.
Executive Vijaya Gad. Chairman Brett Taylor's LinkedIn profile suggests he is also no longer at the firm. So what does Musk intend to do with Twitter? Well,
I do wonder about like these like high fly like CEOs and CFOs. It's like, why would you have a LinkedIn page? Like, you're like working for like a major famous company. It's like someone being like, like Larry Page being like, yeah, my LinkedIn page was. She's like, but why? Because like you worked for a pretty famous company. You're probably well known enough in the CEO, CFO, like high flyer managerial positions sort of world, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm not saying every single person knows who they are. What I'm saying is, if you're the person who hires the CEOs and CFOs, surely you'd know this person, Like, it's just like, yeah, and I actually worked as Twitter's. It's like, but like, what? Anyway,
Well, much of the focus up to now has been on content moderation and user bans. Musk has described himself as a free speech absolutist, and in March...
Which doesn't really work if you're also talking about banning bots. Because, free speech, most bots are not sent out by, their source is not a bot. It's a human. So while bots are obviously a problem with Twitter, they are sent out by humans. So surely that's free speech. That's just that human They may have created bots, but they're still a human. They're, the source is still a human. They're just in a free speech. Just because they're scamming all your followers doesn't mean necessarily it's a problem. Also, I believe Musk got hacked before, and the scams were scammed out of money. But
He tweeted this. Given that Twitter serves as the de facto public town square, failing to adhere to free speech principles
doesn't really
fundamentally undermines democracy. What should be done? Musk would go on to expand on his views about moderation at a TED Talk in April.
Well, I think we would want to err on this. If in doubt, let the speech let it exist. It would have, if it's a gray area, I would say let the tweet exist.
But a grey area is a very complicated situation, because what you said is a grey area. What you said is, oh, this is too far. This is not far enough. Like, inherently, if your argument is, oh, it's not Nazi-like enough, it's like, oh, okay, but it is still Nazi-like. So should we just, maybe take into account the fact that this person is a Nazi?
But
like the kind of idea of like, well, do you understand there are people out there who do want to actually support democracy? To being like, yeah, we need to keep them on the platform in order to keep no, actually, because they're basically campaigning in secret for the end of democracy, for them to be in power. So inherently, keeping them on the platform is the opposite of trying to keep democracy. Yeah.
Obviously, in a case where there's perhaps a lot of controversy, that you would not want to necessarily promote that tweet. If so I'm not saying this is that I have.
This is hilarious. Like, this is very like the shadow banning committee. Also, we will need to slightly shadow ban people if there's a lot of controversy. Yeah, that's the point. Do you understand? Like, this is also my problem with people who are like, oh, Twitter's canceling me. It's like, okay, do you understand? If you're a celebrity and you feel like you're being cancelled because Twitter's restricting your access, how about? And this is just a little possibility. How about you set up another account? And then, see, the one thing you will lose is all that juicy little following. And see, that is really what they're talking about. Not, oh, I'm being cancelled or I'm being censored. It's, I can't abuse the position I have. Imagine if you're just thinking it through. Like, just think of yourself as Hitler. Okay? What you're doing there is you're abusing your power. Like, there are actual Nazis on the street talking a bunch of nonsense. And they would, were they the leader of the country, do exactly what Hitler did. But the thing is, they're not. But that's sort of the point. That's why I wouldn't necessarily say you should shoot them. But if they were the leader, then yeah, do. My point is, effectively, is that inherently, with this, it's just like, you can't have no censorship, because like, then how do you expect, I
have all the answers here, but I do think that we want to be just very reluctant to delete things and have just be very cautious with permanent bans. Timeouts I think are better than sort of permanent bans, and but just in general, like I said, how it won't be perfect, but I think we wanted to really have, like I said, the perception and reality that speech is as free as reasonably possible. And a good sign as to whether there is free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like.
Funny, this is the same fella who who cancelled the order of a journalist who wrote something not very nice about him. Although I don't know why you buy a Tesla. By the way, if anyone's listening and you're buying a Tesla, cancel your order, because you're being a bit stupid. And interestingly, Teslas are known for their strength when it comes to crashes, but being absolutely terrible when the battery explodes because the car traps you inside and you die. That's already occurred. That's not a theory. And also, the batteries are terrible for the environment, and also the fact that because if there is a fire, even if you do escape, you've got a battery fire, which means the fire brigade can't actually put it out as easily as they could with like a petrol diesel fire. So actually, Teslas are pretty terrible cars all around, with the exception of the software. The software thing is pretty cool. Although sometimes the software thing can also kick at you, like integrating the screen with software means that if the software fails, your screen, like your speedometer, disappears. So not great.
And if that is the case, then we have free speech. And it's damn annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. That is a sign of a healthy, functioning, free speech situation.
What happens when that person is listened to, though? What happens if they're a flat earther, or they say something like Elon Musk brutally murders Chinese children in his secret sex dungeon beneath his I believe it's over 100. Is it 160 million house? So, or is it just 60 million? I'm not sure. There's like a massive basement where he just like slaughters young children from all those children who get separated at the border in the United States. Yeah, he takes those children and he slaughters them. That's what he does. By the way, for legal reasons, I'm not saying this is what he does. I mean, I'm just saying, that would be something that wouldn't be true to the best of my knowledge. So my point is that inherently, that is my point. It's not, oh, I'm saying something you don't like. Yeah, were it true, you still wouldn't like it. The point is, it's not true to the best of my knowledge. So the point inherently is that, effectively speaking, when looking at this, you're like, well, it's not the same as, oh, I don't like that thing. That's a truth I don't like. And that's BS, and people are believing them. There are certain things that are opinions, and then there are like arguments which are technically not really great arguments because they're surrounded by facts, and it's like, well, my opinion is right because of these facts. And it's like, well, those facts are actually not true. And this happens all the time for various political things as well. Various political things, people are trying to make an argument that Lenin, like Stalin, was a communist. Like, no, definitely wasn't a Marxist, You find you're kind of wrong there. And, they have terrible arguments for it, and that's sort of the point. But also it comes in with right-wing outlets as well all the time. It's actually kind of worse because, being right-wing is, it can be hard to admit certain things when you're right-wing as to why, if you're trying to get other people on your train, because it's like, oh well, But the point basically I'm making is that inherently, when it comes down to it, like, you don't necessarily have things where it's like, oh, I don't like what you're saying. It's like, well, the thing you're saying is factually incorrect, and you're spreading to people, and people are believing you. So no, that's not good.
Yeah, moderation isn't the only issue that Musk has commented on. In the past, he has suggested it could become an app for everything, much like WeChat in China, and he had suggested the platform could consider dropping advertising as its funding model. That last aspiration didn't last long, though. He tweeted this yesterday. So the tweet accompanying the statement reads, "Dear Twitter advertisers," and then the statement reads as such: "I wanted to reach out personally to share my motivation in acquiring Twitter."
Personally, by sending it to everyone on a tweet. Yeah, that's real personal.
There has been much speculation about why I bought Twitter and what I think about advertising. Most of it is wrong. The reason I acquired Twitter is because it is important to the future of civilization to have a common digital town square where a wide range of beliefs can be debated in a healthy manner without resorting to violence. There is
currently, you want to see some town squares.
Great danger.
Just saying, like, I've been in some town squares, and certain speech and certain actions will, get you in serious violence.
Social media will splinter into far right-wing and far left-wing echo chambers that generate more hate and divide our society. In the relentless pursuit of clicks,
I'm not sure. This is the same fella who was like, I'm a Republican now. Yeah. It's like, okay, but you do know now is not a great time to switch to Republican for one. But also, it doesn't need to be like, oh, Republicans and Democrats will go into their own group. It's like, no. Some Republicans are far right, but Democrats are centrist to conservatives. Most of them are conservatives, but there's some centrists, and then there are like some people who are a few of them that are like left leaning, but they're not listened to, of course. It's like, yeah, we should have universal basic income. Yeah, sure. Universal basic income. No, against. It's never gonna come up. But that's just a thing.
Much of traditional media has fueled and catered to those polarized extremes, as they believe that is what brings in the money. But in doing so, the opportunity for dialogue is lost. That is why I bought Twitter. I didn't do it because it would be easy. I didn't do it to make more money. I did it to try.
Well, you never know. You never know.
I help humanity, whom I love, and I do so with humility, recognizing that failure in pursuing this goal, despite our best efforts, is a very real possibility.
Just like, yeah, when your Tesla car explodes and you get trapped inside, Tesla will send a message to your family on Twitter saying, I'm sorry for your loss. Jesus Christ, this gets dark. Oh, God almighty. All I'm saying is basically stay away from Tesla.
I love the combination of I did it to help humanity and I do so with humility. It seems like some contradiction there, but there we go. Back to Musk's statement. That said, Twitter obviously cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences. In addition to adhering to the laws of the land, our platform must be warm and welcoming to all.
That's the important thing, though. Like, the laws of the land are, like, you do understand Twitter will have to restrict, if you want like a free speech app, you're going to have to restrict it in a country if the country says, well, we need content moderation, and there are certain actions which are terrible on Twitter. There's, threats of like actual death threats, which you could argue is technically evidence of attempted murder. If that person ever gets into a situation with someone attempted on life, you could say, well, you clearly have premeditated attempted murder, which should lead to a prison sentence. So there's that, So, I'm just saying, it's not great.
Where you can choose your desired experience according to your preferences, just as you can choose, for example, to see movies or play video games ranging from all ages to mature. I also very much believe that advertising, when done right, can
mature.
Entertain and inform
Elon
you.
loves
It can show
mature
a service
stuff.
or product or medical treatment that you never knew existed.
Like on his planes. Of getting people who wouldn't want to do mature stuff for him to do the mature stuff for him.
But is right for you. And finally, for this to be true, it is essential to show Twitter users advertising that is relevant as possible to their needs. Low relevancy ads are spam, but highly relevant ads are actually content. Fundamentally, Twitter aspires to be the most respected advertising platform in the world that strengthens your brand and grows your enterprise. To everyone who has partnered with us, I thank you. Let us build something extraordinary together. Very notable.
I mean, most people would prefer. That's one of the things of Twitter. It's like it's not going to have actual ads because they don't really work well on Twitter. It's like, well, that's an ad, so I don't really care. It's the same thing with the benefit of having YouTube is that you can have like, films, like company-made films and stuff like this, which are actually YouTube videos. On Twitter, you basically have to do the same thing, which but it's even more so. Like, you have a lot of like promoted tweets, like it's, oh, this company, said this. That's just saying,
Notable, I think, that Elon Musk's, very, very high-profile takeover of Twitter, the first public statement we get, well, that's not just a sort of a few characters in a tweet, is to advertisers. Clearly, he sort of knows what his priorities are as soon as he gets into the building, or at least who he can't afford to lose. Aaron,
to an extent, I think it's that he realizes that bankrolling a company that can't really make money, like it's not like a phone company or a company like this where like it can make money, it'll just cost billions to like funnel in and wait for it to sort of like stay in the market. We're still here, and then eventually it'll make money. Or potentially to make money, and it may cost you billions, but it might be relatively successful. With this, it's like no. There's no point bankrolling Twitter because it's not like other companies where it's like, oh, you bankroll it, but it can make money eventually. You just wait. Like there's financially troubling times, but don't worry, we'll recover and all these things. Like no, this is just it's never gonna really be able to make money unless you do something very weird to it.
Your initial thoughts on Elon Musk buying Twitter?
Okay, so basically drop again here.
Well, actually, Michael, a bit of boasting here. I was actually in the room when he was speaking at TED in Canada, and he said lots of things which I think have not really been discussed in subsequent sort of portrayals of him. He did say, for instance, that he would observe, or Twitter under his leadership would observe the respective legal and regulatory frameworks of different countries. And
I mean, that's sort of, but that's sort of an obvious one. Like, you do have to obey the regulations, or risk getting your social media platform just banned in the country. And it becomes a problem when your social media account gets banned. It's like, it's like if Rupert Murdoch was to buy a bunch of new media outlets, and then next thing, all those countries were just like, oh no, by the way, Rupert, all those products you just bought, they were banned. So, yeah, 44 billion well spent. It got banned everywhere.
And areas you would not think that's the case, seeing certain politicians tweet today. He did say that he wasn't instinctively in favor of lifetime bans, but he thinks that actually, or he thought, maybe that's changed, that Twitter should be far more eager to just give temporary timeouts or delete certain tweets. I think those are good instincts. I think the instinct for lifetime bans is quite strange.
The problem you see, and this is where I disagree with Novara Media, is that's a bit like saying, why? No, they shouldn't have killed Hitler when they had a chance. They should have told him to shut the fuck up each time he said something. Sorry, what? First of all, language, but why exactly would that help? If you tell someone you have to delete that tweet, you know what they're going to do? They're going to tweet some more. They're going to do it even more. This seems to misunderstand basic human characteristics, which is that is not what humans do. This is not what humans do. Humans do, they just don't listen to things like that. It's, well.
And the idea of it, all or nothing. So you don't touch Trump's account until actually there was a sort of a period of 6 weeks where actually that's it. He's banned forever. I think probably it is wiser and more intelligent to hold high profile figures accountable before it gets that far, before things get that bad.
Basically, you're arguing for they should have stopped Trump before that. Yeah, that's not an argument against lifetime bans. That's an argument for increased protection on more stuff. This idea that also, once again, getting to the point, lifetime bans, just create another fucking account. Don't tell me you got a lifetime ban. You as a person didn't get a lifetime ban. Your Twitter account got a lifetime ban. Create a new one.
Finally, also, I think he's got a bit of a bargain. Now, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? $44 billion. But bear in mind, Musk is worth $220 billion. I think after...
Not anymore.
After $1 billion, it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? It's all about how much political power and status and legacy you can build. And I think for $44 billion, I think approximately £36 billion, that changes every day in recent months. I think for $44 billion, he is getting a media company which is just head and shoulders above any rival. If you think of the sort of big media purchases and acquisitions.
But see, once again, you're missing the point. In America, right, conventional media has a lot of control because there's what are they called? I should know this. I didn't think of this before. I forgot. We were in this anyway. And basically, they own all these like local news stations, and they own like a lot of them. And basically, what they're doing is they're injecting propaganda into the voices of like local news. And obviously, in America, America's quite a big country, so local news has a relatively like big following, like collectively. If you add up all the local news stations, they have a lot of political power, and that's sort of the point. So basically, they're worth billions, and that's my point. Inherently, they're very focused because they can say, oh, in this particular area of this particular state, we want the voters to think this, or we want the voters to think that. So they say, okay, that particular state, this is what you listen to. When you're buying Twitter, you're not buying that, because I'm not going to believe something I see on Twitter, which means that's very different to if I was looking at that on, a trusted source. First of all, Twitter is not a trusted source. By a lot of people. It has, I believe, less than 1 billion, users. And realistically, when you think about that, it's not really a great deal. What it is effectively a great deal of the leftover things. Like, those local news stations are not going to be, the people who own those local news stations are not going to sell them because they're already owned by one corporation. And that corporation is not going to be bought out by anyone else. They know it's worth far more than what they paid, So inherently, this is the problem, which is Twitter's not actually that much of a bargain at the end of the day. Because first of all, you've got spread, which is an issue. And basically, you don't really have consolidated power. Like, if I say, I've got 1 million people to influence you, they will listen to every single one I say. It's like, well, yeah, how many of them are in, Bangladesh? How many of them are in, Luxembourg? How many of them are in Germany? How many of them are in... Then you break it down, and the actual political power begins to be less so much I can literally force a person into office, and more I can nudge the person into office with additional people, but they have to already have close to a majority anyway, So it's a little bit different. But of course, you do have areas in which, obviously Twitter is heavily watched. And then one of the things is the US.
Acquisitions in recent years. Nikkei bought the Financial Times Group for about $1 billion, $1.5 billion in 2015. But look, in 2022, Michael, a newspaper editorial saying, don't vote for this person, vote for that person, is irrelevant. Nobody cares. If Elon Musk and Twitter give a platform to, say, Donald Trump ahead of 2024, well, that could be a game changer. So in terms of...
In fairness, though, I think inherently, if you vote for Trump, you're an idiot, or you are a selfish person who is, advantaging your own interest. And now people are going to disagree with me here, but, like, that is kind of true. Like... I don't think it really takes Twitter for Trump to be on Twitter to get you to vote for them, to be honest. I would say very few people would actually be more likely just because, in fact, probably less almost, because they can listen to fucking weird things he says, Obviously, it means his supporters will listen to him more. It means his supporters are more likely to force violence, more likely to do this. Which one of the things they'll say, which is like, Donald Trump will most likely lose the election, but will, still become president, basically. Or there'll be a civil war. I don't know.
Political power, in terms of being able to change the dial on the American conversation, but actually on the global conversation too, I think it's extraordinary value, actually. I think you can make or break nations owning this company right now.
Yes. Except that's not necessarily what you want to do. See, breaking nations is an issue, because this happens all the time with Americans. This is why people think Americans are kind of evil, because they don't really care. They're like, oh, we don't really like you being in power, so we're just going to crush you. But not really simply realizing that it's a little bit harder. It's a lot easier to crush someone's power and to force a country into decline, rather than to force your own guy in. Because what happens if your own guy gets executed? What happens if your own guy's people turning against him? They're like, no, he just don't want you, or there's another power hungry fella who you don't really want, and they kill him. You know, this is like, well, you don't always have the power to simply place people in power. Twitter is one of those weird places where, yes, they can make things like, you know, Myanmar with Facebook, they actually instigated basically a war. But the point was that they didn't necessarily choose the people to be put in power. They just chose to destabilize the democracy. So inherently what occurred was chaos and a dictatorship out of the fact that they were doing that.
For a small dent in his personal wealth, I think that's something that actually has
I mean, small dent is a bit of a, you know, it's like a fifth of his wealth, so, you know.
culture as a society we should all be talking about. If you think, for instance,
like a fifth of my wealth, wait, well, that would be like maybe a couple of quid, but you know, I would be pretty serious. I mean, like,
Rupert Murdoch has toxified the public agora and our political cultures in the English-speaking world, in Australia, the US, UK. I would argue that this kind of trend, the world's richest man or one of the world's richest men buying a social media platform, is significantly worse.
Let's come back to a bunch of those points in a moment. First,
yeah, I mean, like
Trump. So let's go into some more detail on that, because lots of attention on.
Say that they were gonna like allow Trump back, probably, or there was something like that, wasn't there? Anyway, I'm not sure. Maybe not.
What this will all mean has been, and what it will mean for Donald Trump. The former president was banned from Twitter after the platform judged that his tweets had helped incite the Capitol riots.
Helped incite, inspired, I think, would be the more. Also, almost got the vice president hanged, which I have to say would have been kind of interesting.
Musk had previously expressed opposition to that ban, and this is what he said when asked by the Financial Times this May if he would reinstate Trump's account.
I do think that it was not correct to ban Donald Trump. I think that was a mistake because it alienated a large part of the country and did not ultimately result in Donald Trump not having a voice. He is now going to be on Truth Social, as will a large part of the right in the United States.
Yeah, I think the point is the people who follow Truth Social are Nazis, so there's no real help in that. They are Nazis, so inherently, you know, if you've got your Nazi platform, it's like, okay, well, they're Nazis, you know. Unless you plan on imprisoning them or killing them, then there's not much you can do about that. They just are Nazis. So the thing is that I think what Twitter was trying to do was stop turning people into Nazis through Trump's tweets, and that was what they were trying to do. You know, so now if you want to get his outlet, you have to basically be a Nazi to begin with.
And so I think this could end up being, frankly, worse than having a single forum where everyone can debate.
Debate.
I guess the answer is that I would reverse the perma ban. Obviously, I don't own Twitter yet, so this is not like a thing that will definitely happen, because what if I don't own Twitter? But my opinion, and Jack Dorsey, I want to be clear, shares this opinion, is that we should not have perma bans. Now that doesn't mean that somebody gets to say whatever they want to say. If they say something that is illegal or otherwise, just destructive to the world, then that there should be perhaps a timeout, a temporary suspension.
Yeah, like if they say, you know, let's rise on the Tesla factory and burn it to the ground. You know, the Gigafactory in Texas says burn it to the ground. You know, let's take it out apart piece by piece. Yeah, that probably wouldn't get too far. Now, at least.
Or that particular tweet should be made invisible or have very limited traction. But
once again, the fellow who said, "Oh, the shadow ban." This is what the fucking shit he says. Like, you know.
I think perma bans just fundamentally undermine trust in Twitter as a town square where everyone can voice their opinion.
Town Square thing again. Maybe not the best argument you're making.
It was a fun. I think it was a morally bad decision, to be clear, and foolish in the extreme.
Even after he egged on the crowd who went to the US Capitol, some of them carrying nooses, you still think it was a mistake to remove him?
I think if there are tweets that are wrong, they should, and bad, those should be either deleted or made invisible. And a suspension, a temporary suspension is appropriate, but not a permanent ban.
So if the deal completes,
I would argue that, right, if permanent bans meant that the person could never use Twitter again. Because you could argue, well, permanent bans are not the same. But that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're saying, you know the way you've got access to 80 million people. Well, although you could argue, and most followed Twitter accounts are actually not followed by that number of people. You know, something with YouTube, you know, it's like, I got 50 million subscribers. So that means 50 million people. No, it doesn't, actually. Sorry to break it to you, but it doesn't. It means maybe 30 million people with a couple who subscribe multiple times, maybe 40 million, but definitely not the number that actually subcount says. Yeah. But basically my point is inherently, if someone has a large following, I think it should be perfectly okay to take that away from them. Because fuck off with your large following. You know, be like the rest of us. You can be brought down to having 0 followers. You know, do whatever you like, just let's not have it for the people who are on the, the higher, who have a lot of followers and have access to who can actually attack people, and actually direct violence or just actually, threaten people, make so that they can only really tweet their opinions into a void where no one's listening, even if they're actually directing at people.
Completes, he might potentially come back on, but with the understanding that if he does something similar again, he'll be back in the sin bin.
He has publicly stated that he will not be coming back to Twitter, and that he will only be on Truth Social. And this is the point that I'm trying to make, which is perhaps not getting across, is that banning Trump from Twitter didn't end Trump's voice. It will amplify it among the right. And
yes, but the point you're missing, though, is that it's amplified to the right. If you're a Nazi, does it matter if you, would, kill for Trump, and now that you've left him even more, now you'd actually die for him too? Does it matter? Because you were always a Nazi. You were always going to do whatever you were going to say. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the spreading of that voice. Having even more engaged followers at some point just means so they're what? They're just more engaged. They're always willing to do whatever you say, so it doesn't really matter. They do it with an even more willingness, but that doesn't save any time. That doesn't make it any quicker. And it's just like that. Boom. So, not a great argument, because it's like, well, yeah, sure, I'm like, yeah, but they already love him, so
This is why it is morally wrong and flat out stupid.
So he said. So he said that Donald Trump said he didn't want to come back to Twitter. He's only going to use Truth Social, that sort of right-wing free speech alternative to Twitter.
Which is owned by Trump, so you said.
Trump has, though, come out and spoken about this takeover, so he does still seem interested in Twitter. He said today, "I am very happy that Twitter is now in sane hands and will no longer be run by radical left lunatics."
Interesting about this. So basically, I've discussed it before. And basically it's that if you call someone left-wing when they're clearly not left-wing, it implies that they're left of you. So let's see. Twitter is a platform that isn't too great when it comes to, it likes to do a lot of corporate messaging, likes to been involved in a few sort of scandals when it comes to like free speech or stuff. That's why it's harsh on not even harsh. It's why it's kind of, it's why it even bans people, because it was told you can't keep doing this because there was problems out of it. So it doesn't have the best history when it comes to moderation. It had a terrible history when it came to moderation. They just didn't do moderation. That's changed now because they got a rap on the knuckles. So that's clearly fairly, they have a lot of history with like, having a lot of fascists, a lot of like rapists, a lot of murderers on there. And yeah, they appear to be fairly right wing. I place them at like conservative to maybe centrist. So basically, let's see what's more right wing than that. What position must you be in for that to be left wing? Okay, so radical left as well. See, it's radical. So we say far. Okay, so now that makes you a fascist. That's what it does. You see, if something is radical left to you, and it's not left wing, so the thing is conservative or the thing is libertarian, then we must go, okay, so that's a left wing to you, okay, which makes you a fascist. That's basically it. I'm just saying this is why Donald Trump is technically a fascist.
Lunatics and maniacs that truly hate our country. Twitter must now work hard
Also,
to
surely hate our country. They want to protect our citizens. They want to give our citizens equal rights. They hate this country. They hate the way, you can just make someone do anything you want by just throwing a bit of cash at them. They hate the modern day slavery. They hate all the discrimination. They hate all that. It's like, well, at least he can admit that that's what America truly is. That's shit. That's a joke.
to rid itself of all the bots and fake accounts that have hurt it so badly. It will be much smaller but better. It's a funny ending there.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. Like, it'll be smaller, but it'll be better. We'll lose many, many people. But end of the day, like, sort of, better
I think that's like is that a Leninist phrase, Aaron? Smaller but better, or is it just is that something that sort of I've just heard sort of far left people say in the past?
It's definitely from like Trotskyists and like the Bolshevik tradition. Like I think Lenin said it, something to that effect, right? And also Che Guevara said something, or maybe it was Fidel Castro actually. They said,
So you want a tight cadre, but that's very, very disciplined. Anyway, that was a little bit of a distraction. My apologies. Let's get back to what Elon Musk said about Donald Trump. What did you make of those comments he made, and how significant is this to Donald Trump if Elon Musk does let him back on?
Well, I think it's massive, and actually, I think a lot of what Elon Musk said there towards the end is just not accurate. I think that Trump
okay, he can admit that. Sorry, I thought he was going to defend that. Sorry for saying that. Thinking like, if you're like, yeah, no, it was a bad decision because when someone is on a far right outlet, bringing them to a mixed outlet makes their voice the same. It doesn't amplify it. No, it does though.
Being suspended, expelled, unanimously across the major social media platforms. So, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I don't know if maybe he's back on Instagram. I have no idea. But there was. I think he's off all of them. I mean, you tell me. I think he's definitely off all the Meta companies. Are they on YouTube? I think they might still be on YouTube.
I think they might be. I remember it's funny because I remember I found Donald Trump's YouTube before and it was like, Biden uses a teleprompter. Boom. Scandal. What do you think you use? Like I actually thought, is this like a satirical thing? Like it had Donald Trump in the name and had all the followers and everything. Sorry, subscribers. So it was like this has to be fake, right? It has to be, but I don't know. It was like, yeah, teleprompter. You see, in this scene, we see he's using a teleprompter. Scandal. What do you use, Donald? Because some of those excuses that were before was that you didn't learn off the speech, that you were like reciting it live, which is fine, you know. But if you weren't using a teleprompter, then how come you couldn't speak? Because, you know, if you were learning off the thing, you kind of should be able to like say the correct words, like not mix up the words, because, you know, as you do. It's just like, come on.
YouTube, but the sort of, yeah, the scroll stuff. So yeah, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you know, he's not there. And I think that's had a massive impact actually on his broader cultural presence. So I don't buy this. And, you know, I am one of those people, Michael, that says we should be circumspect about, you know, cancelling people from, you know, the public.
Oh, for fuck's sake, someone's saying, can't you then? Yeah, come on. I hate this stupid phrase because it really doesn't make much sense on social media platforms. Like, if you're social media platform, just create a fucking another one. Like, obviously, once again, the thing you're losing is your platform. That's what these people are concerned about. Not losing social media accounts, because they can still talk into the airspace, but what they're wanting to keep is they're talking down to millions or hundreds of thousands of people. That's what they want. Inherently, I have to explain this. Cancellation implies you are less than nothing. You know? You're less than me. If you're being cancelled, it implies that I have, you know, more of a following. I am seen more. I'm viewed more than you are. Do you think that's true of Donald Trump? Do you think I'm viewed more than Donald Trump? Take a look at the view counter. Is that more than the people who view Donald Trump? I think not. I think it's not more, to be honest. So off of this cancellation BS.
Conversation. But when you look at what it did to somebody like Marley Yiannopoulos, it did work. Or Tommy Robinson, it did work.
In fairness, Milo is a very hard person to defend. Yeah, he's a paedophile. You want to defend that, do you? Really? You sure you want to defend that? It's very hard to argue, like, someone who's actively, like, basically a pedophile. He's arguing for pedophilia. You know, like, that's just, you know.
You know? So I don't buy.
Also, Tony Robbins, like, people who commit crimes or say that disgusting crimes shouldn't be crimes. Obviously, some crimes shouldn't be crimes. But I think with pedophilia, yeah, no, that should be a crime. And that should, I think, in my opinion, they should increase the punishment for it. You know, like, certain things are just not, they're just not really legally okay.
By that line of reasoning. I'm not saying in regard to a specific person whether it was right or wrong. I think it was right with regards to Robinson, for instance, repeatedly breaking the law, repeatedly putting people's safety and health.
Technically, if you break the law, you get imprisoned in some cases. So, you know, you don't need to get banned. You just remove access to the ability to send stuff. You know,
at risk by lying. I think it obviously does work. So I wouldn't agree with him there, but I do think actually he does have a point in regards to having Trump deleted from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram simultaneously was a clear moment to tens of millions of Americans saying, we can end people that you think reflect and represent your values in politics. And I think that's fundamentally not a good thing. I think having an aggrieved, vicious, increasingly...
I think that's more because Trump specifically used Twitter, Facebook, and all the rest, and all these social media sites to spread a message. Like, if you used conventional media, if from the outset he used his own media, or, you know, used media source that was, you know, had the same sort of like if he just used Fox News, for example, if Fox News was the only thing, Trump never tweeted. It was always, if he thought of something, he'd be on Fox News at the end within the minute, you know, going, you know, talking his BS. You know what I mean? Like, if that was all that happened, if you didn't use it, then it wouldn't be as powerful. It's because when you use these outlets, then you're sending a message and then you're giving them the power to ban you. So I think that's the main point. If it was a different person who just used vaccine, for example, then obviously, it would have been fine because they wouldn't have been using it.
Increasingly fanatical minority of people in society is very unwelcome when it numbers tens of millions of people. So a little bit of complexity there. I don't think Trump should be allowed back on all these platforms willy-nilly, but I do think, Michael, in retrospect, I said this at the time, it was a huge, historic, remarkable step to ban. I think at the time he was still a sitting president, Michael, you tell me, to ban
he was banned the day after the inauguration, so he would have just left. He was banned the day after Biden's inauguration because it was the Capitol riots.
My apologies.
Was to confirm Biden as president.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Sorry, it was 2 days. But it was between the confirmation and the inauguration. Probably, you're right.
That's what I thought. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a small point.
Yeah,
to ban a sitting president of the United States, quote unquote, the most powerful person in the world, I thought that was a real statement from the
quote unquote, because fucking not
Silicon Valley companies. And realistically, of course, you might not like Trump. So in this instance, you say,
what's the phrase again? It's like, president, I wouldn't want to become president. I have to give up too much power. That kind of thing was like the person is donating to all the political parties, so they have to give up power because they have to listen to people. If you are the president, if you're the person paying the president, you're the person the president's listening to. So,
say, good, I'm happy. But what if it was a socialist president and he was enacting as unlikely as that is in our lifetimes? Plausible, it's theoretically possible. And he was enacting, rules.
Not with the Republican or Democratic Party, unless they're like a secret socialist, like they're just like, we need to turn away those, and just they're taking action, and then next thing they get in the office and go, that was an act actually, universal income, boom, now improve working conditions, boom, 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 removing all those billionaires, boom, 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 yay, you know what I mean? Like that's pretty much the only way America will ever get a socialist president, if the person is in secret, hiding, and then they come out. Which, maybe, who knows? I mean, that's what the Republicans had, far right people coming into the party and being like, yeah, definitely, But or else, if the Republicans and Democrats both lose to like a more left-leaning political party, there aren't many in America, but maybe.
Rules around closed shop trade unions, massively increased minimum wage, public provision of healthcare and education in the United States, and then Facebook and Twitter and Instagram said, no, thank you, we're not platforming you. So I do think, as a rule, it's a very, very dangerous pitch for the left to be playing on, and to be so certain of what one thinks. And I do agree that the idea of lifetime bans is...
There's opinion, and then there's fact. And when it comes down to it, it's like, well, lifetime bans, you can always make the argument, just create another account. The argument you're saying is you won't be able to contact millions of people. But my response to that is, I can't. If I set up a Twitter account, if I go to my Twitter account, I can't, a million people are not going to see that. 10 million people are not going to see that. That's not going to be reported on all the news sites. No. Okay? No one's going to see that. And that's sort of my point. Looking at this, you have to ask yourself, well, no, look at, come on.
Is inherently bad, and I think that Twitter handled the Trump situation very poorly, in so much as months, years before it got that bad, they should have just I guess the word would be, just nudged his behavior in certain directions through, temporary suspensions, timeouts, deletes of tweets.
Do you really think you can nudge Trump's behavior, do you?
I think that's a more effective strategy. I mean, this is a very different conversation in regards to the broader one about multi-billionaires owning massive media companies, which of course is entirely bad. I think it's important to insulate the conversation around who can and cannot be platformed and under what conditions from the question of ownership. Finally, Musk, Michael, I said at the top of the show, worth $220 billion, actually spending $44 billion in this company. Really good value for somebody like him. What's he going to spend the money on, if not political power and status?
I mean, the richest man in the world is a pretty, status position. I think, I don't know what happens to his net worth valuation, actually. Because Twitter's not worth 44 billion. Do they just say, okay, well, if he sold it back on the stock market, like how do you get the valuations for private companies when they've devalued? Like obviously it makes sense to value a company even when you're a private company when you've increased the value, because it's like, well, you want to get private shareholders, and you want to get people to look upon your products as good, and you want to do all these sort of things. So it's like, oh, well, that company is very valuable. But if your company is devalued, it's in your best interest to be like, no, it's definitely worth how much I put in. It'd be probably illegal to suggest it's worth more, but so I wonder what that does to his net worth. Because it's very, very unlikely he can sell that for 45 billion. Especially if he does if he does what he's planning to do. It would most likely devalue the platform significantly. So that would probably take a dip out of his net worth. But then he could argue, what even his net worth when it comes to down to it. It's like, there's probably billions hidden off somewhere that isn't reported on.
And you have to understand how much money this guy makes. I remember talking to somebody in North America, and they went to Musk for money for their not-for-profit. And he loves their not-for-profit. He loves the cause behind it.
Does he now? Seems like those people are like, yes, I love, your not-for-profit. What do you do? Yes, you take cans out of the ocean. By the way, I'm actually, Coca-Cola's, head of, packaging production. But that's what you do. You cause those problems, so you do have to be aware of these things. It's oftentimes kind of like greenwashing.
And they sat down for half an hour, and I think they wanted something like $6 million from Musk. And he said no. And they said, we've been sitting at this table, and every hour this year you made $15 million, something like that. So literally every hour this guy is alive, at that point, obviously.
Oh, sorry. My internet is pretty terrible. Oh, God almighty. Sorry about this. Just need to solve a few problems, and then we can get the video back on,
Obviously, because Tesla market capitalization was just through the roof, skyrocketing.
Yeah, because once again, that's overvaluation. So
he was earning insane amounts of money. He literally can't spend. Nobody can spend that money quickly enough. And this is a broader trend. We see it with Bezos and with Musk, but you look at the data with regards to the sort of 1,000 wealthiest people in the United States, the 1,000 wealthiest people in the United Kingdom, and there is a runaway cohort of the ultra elite. And of course, as my interview with Gary Stevenson recently discussed, where does that money go? Well, on the one hand, it goes into assets. They get inflated. That makes the rest of us poorer. But for the ultra,
well, in general, you're so close to understanding. So close to understanding basic maths.
Rich, it's going to increasingly go into, yes, media platforms like newspapers, but that was very much yesterday's news. Now it's about ownership of social networks.
Well, all of it. It is important to get all of the social networks are generally less trusted than news outlets, but they are obviously a lot more valuable in the sense that there's a lot more people. So it's a lot harder to convince someone just off a social network unless they're already, that way inclined. But obviously, yeah.
And again, Musk is hugely interested in the issue of AI. He's played a prominent role in OpenAI. I think if you're thinking about developing AI applications over the next 5, 10, 15 years, access to Twitter with hundreds of millions, billions of people and their data
Seems like probably breaking a few laws there.
is incredibly valuable for you as a business person. So the idea
Yeah.
this is some, unthinkable.
Well, like we all know, Elon's gonna fuck off somewhere. Like it'll either be like, Mars, which would probably kill him actually, or like deep into the Earth, or off to another planet. The point I'm making ultimately is that this fucker does not care about the rest of us. So at the end of the day, he's gonna just, live life, enjoy it.
Unthinking, stupid, frivolous act on the part of Elon Musk, I think, is wishful thinking, if only. I think it's quite an astute deal for him.
I mean, it depends what you mean by frivolous. Like, if I was to say to you, okay, so you can spend, all of your life savings. Like, every single time you earn any money, it'll be taken by me. And in return, you can have the power to tell people to do anything you want. It's like, yes, that's a great power, but they can't give you any money. They can't work for you and you to make any money because all that goes away. So basically, it's like, will he make the 44 billion back? That's debatable. Will it be worth it in products and services yes, So it's like the money, not necessarily, but yeah. Anyway,
both in terms of the commercial side, but also the political patronage side too.
We should move on quite quickly. I do just want to ask you one more question about Musk, though, Aaron, which I suppose is a bit more, in general, what do you think of the guy? And I don't mean this in terms of, do you think he's a nice guy? Is he likable? I think we probably both agree he's not particularly likable as a person. But I keep having...
Yeah, he's a dickhead. He sexually harassed people. Like, come on. It's like being like, yeah, Bill Gates, is he a likable guy? No, he became friends with a sex offender. So maybe don't start going down that road. Because it makes it sound like, yeah, no, there's just some vibes off him that just don't really work well. It just don't really gel. It's like, yeah, the sex offender vibes. Those vibes. Yeah.
I keep having debates.
It is weird though, isn't it? Like all these billionaires, like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, just like full on, outwardly just being obviously sex pets, like just actively making friends with like Jeffrey Epstein and actually sexually harassing like staff and employees. Like we know that from both of them. Like, come on, it's like, come on, like it's just.
Debates in my life about whether or not he's genuinely innovative. Lots of people sort of seem to think he's just a fraud. He's just blagged his way to being the richest man in the world.
No, what they think is, Michael, and please don't go down this stupid fanboy route. What they think he did was, they think he had money and paid people to make a product. Now, that's not an entrepreneur. That's not an entrepreneur. That is literally just someone who owns a business. Okay?
I tend to more be on the position of, I don't think anyone should be able to amass that much wealth, mainly because they will be able to buy with that amassed wealth political power. And I think that completely...
No, mainly because okay, I'm going to explain basic maths to you. So imagine you have 10 beads. Imagine like an abacus. And, Senior, Musk has himself 9 beads. And everybody else has 1 bead. But necessary to have a comfortable life, they need 3 beads. Okay? Now the problem is, they won't have 3 beads if he has the 9. Do you understand? This is how money works. If that person has more of the money, it means we have less of it. Every single person on this planet should have around 150 to around 200 grand. Guess what, though? They don't. I don't have that. You probably don't have that, if you're listening. And inherently, I'm very likely Michael doesn't have that either. And this is the point. Inherently, you should. That's your fair share. Why not take it? Oh wait, you can't because they have it. This is the point. This is why I get really, like, I have to ask, is this left wing? Like, oh, because they can borrow. No, it's just basic maths to go, well, guess what? Maybe we shouldn't let them amass this wealth because they can't amass the wealth without taking it off of us. This is how, literally, 10 minus 9 gives you 1. You're left with 1. They have 9. They have more money than you have. Now, inherently, this is the problem.
Completely corrupts our political system. But he's an interesting billionaire in the sense that I do think he has revolutionized some interesting industries: space travel, electric cars. And I mean, I've got no idea what he's going to do to Twitter, but
I don't think he's revolutionizing himself, though. I mean, no offense, Michael, but like, if I go out and I employ a bunch of people to invent stuff for me, I can't be like, I invented that. It's like, no, you didn't. You paid for it. Legally speaking, you most likely own the rights to it, although dubious. But you didn't invent it. Let's be honest now.
Twitter. But I wanted to know your sort of thoughts on that as Elon Musk as a.
Please, why? These are like Elon fans who became left wing, so kind of like disagree with him when it comes to the amount of money he has, but still fucking revere him like a god. Jesus Christ.
Innovator, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur.
Well, I think it's a good question, and I know there's some real mixed feelings about this. I mean, so for
They're not
instance,
mixed feelings. There's facts.
the labour standards on the Tesla.
Hey, look, what the fuck is this? He's not an entrepreneur. Do you understand? Look, there's two types of basically inventors of marketable products: entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are people who set up their own business and they have an idea for a product and they make the product. Now, they may employ people to physically make the product, but they have the skills and engineering ideas to basically tell people. Now, theoretically, in the future, it'll mean one person can technically, as long as, of course, they have the money, can technically just tell a robot to do it. Obviously, it won't be as simple as just, I have an idea for a product, I'll make a product, I'll be rich. No, obviously, you have to have the money to buy the robots, which will be very expensive. But you know what I mean? Like, that's your entrepreneur, right? They have the idea and they make a business out of it themselves. An entrepreneur is someone who works for a business and they go and they say, okay, I've got an idea, boss. How about we make this product? Okay? And the boss goes, sounds like that could make some money, and they have it made. That is basically it. Now, Elon Musk is neither of those two things. What he is a fella who's gone, how about you make an electric car? I want the features. Give me features. Boom. That is like calling Tim Cook an entrepreneur. First of all, he didn't set up the business. Second of all, he doesn't make the products, like design them. There are designers. There are, people who actually have the ability to code. There are all these people, but you're doing the, entrepreneurs. That's what Apple has. And it's the same with Tesla. They're entrepreneurs. It's the same with Twitter. It's the same with Facebook. All these things are based off entrepreneurs. Now, you could technically argue Mark Zuckerberg is technically an entrepreneur. No, you could argue technically he's not the only one. So, for that particular product, it's like kind of like a bit. You can never really rely on these things, though. It's like, yes, I was involved in it. Sure. It's like, yeah, but were you involved in actually the creation of the idea, or did you just come along, anyway.
Good question, and I know there's some real mixed feelings about this. I mean, so for instance, the labour standards on the Tesla, factory floor, not good.
Are shit.
I'm not suggesting he's some socialist hero.
Well, he's definitely a socialist hero. He's worth billions. Like, come on. He's
an industrialist. I think that's a key difference between him and, when we use the word entrepreneur, it often doesn't mean somebody who's acquainted necessarily with the industry.
No. An entrepreneur has a definition in business, okay? It has a definition in business. Sorry to break it to you, but it just does. And it does not apply in any way to Elon Musk. Even though he's managed to, I don't know, bribe his way apparently, pay his way onto being named as a founder of Tesla, even though he fucking isn't. Even still, that still doesn't make him an entrepreneur, okay? No, an entrepreneur, sorry. Entrepreneur would be work for the business, you know?
The industrial processes and the technologies they're working with. I'm not saying he's the lead developer. I'm not.
It's not about fucking Christ. The lead developer, right, develops something. The person who comes with the idea, it's not necessarily the lead developer. So once again, yeah, I'm saying he's not a fucking entrepreneur because he doesn't come up with the ideas. He pays people to come up with ideas, and then he also pays people to put those ideas into real life. That is in no way an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or any sort of entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, it's just someone who has fucking money.
I'm not saying he's architecting the systems that are going to, send people to Mars, and that's very much the image he likes to project. But he's certainly
It's very much because he pays in. Like, who the fuck goes? I'm what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make sure I get named as a founder of a company I did not found. Like, come on, how the fuck did it even happen? Like,
bay with a lot of the conversations and a lot of possibilities and technologies that underpin his businesses. I think that's inarguable. I don't also buy the idea that he's stupid. I just find this ridiculous, or that
no one thinks he's stupid. They think he's an evil little piece of shit. They don't think, like, technically speaking, right? Jeff Bezos is more of an entrepreneur than Elon Musk, because Jeff Bezos actually, discovered, I guess you'd call it, the concept of online stores. Obviously, it wasn't the first online store, but discovered the concept of online stores and used the money he got from his parents to build a business empire out of it. Now, had he not had that money, would he have been able to build his business empire? No, let's be honest. Let's just be honest about it. That's not talk BS. These kind of things you need to have stuff. You need to do these things. It's not going to work for that. But the point I'm making is that no one thinks Jeff Bezos is stupid, right? They think he's evil. No one thinks Elon Musk is stupid. They think he's evil. Well, maybe stupid people think he's stupid, but you know what I mean. So, just saying.
that, he would never have made that much money if his family hadn't owned an emerald mine in South Africa. Well, lots of people start out with lots of money. Very few people end up being worth $220 billion.
Okay, let's break this down, because this is bullshit. Okay, Aaron, imagine if your family are worth millions, okay? Imagine what you can do with that. Now imagine your family are not worth millions and billions. Imagine they're worth nothing. Imagine they're in massive debt that you have to pay off. Now imagine building a business empire where you have to invest loads of money in order to sell your first product. Imagine that. Imagine trying to argue, yes, you can spend hundreds of thousands, all this sort of stuff on things you don't need. Oh, guess what? That's the point. It's not an argument, okay, to say, well, I mean, other people got loads of money from the families and they didn't become massively wealthy. That's not the argument. The argument is this, that he wouldn't have been able had he not had access to that money. Okay? Next, let's just be honest here. Just because your family are exploitive little pieces of shit doesn't mean you are, I mean, for all I know, Aaron here has, a multi-billionaire parents. I don't know. But the point is, just because your family exploited people doesn't mean you are. Except to become a mega billionaire when that wasn't the wealth you stand off from, yeah, you kind of do need to exploit people. You need to lie. So let me tell you a little story about Tesla. So one of the things Tesla got was they wanted to get a little bit of a government grant sort of thing. And but the problem was they needed to have like endorsement from a reputable car brand. So what they did was they told the reputable car brand that they already had the grant to get that car brand to endorse them, which they then said, well, look, now we've been endorsed, Oh, can we have our grant? Now, that is what I would call defrauding the government. Now, maybe don't argue. I mean, a lot of people, they don't defraud the government, so, maybe they... So are you arguing they should? Should they not? Oh, so let's make sure that our billionaire, tax dollars go back into the billionaire fund. Is that it? Fucking Christ. Also, you do understand Tesla is way overvalued. So, if we were doing a fair market system, he would not be worth anywhere near that level. It would be worth actually be worth nothing. Because most of his money he spent is off of selling Tesla stock and selling, stuff. But the amount of money he's had to invest in order to get it to its valuation, it's okay, so let's collapse valuation. Obviously, he wouldn't. Well, of course, that wouldn't really work because obviously, if Tesla didn't rocket in value, he wouldn't have invested as much. But it did, so he's one thing rocket in value, when it shouldn't have.
Really excelled at isolating industrial innovations and commercial opportunities in a way that most people aren't. I agree with.
Yeah, he set up. Well, he didn't even set up. He decided to buy a car company that made electric cars, and he was like, okay, well, why not just make sports cars? Because while obviously you won't be able to make them as cheap as Ford or whatever, if you just make expensive cars, stupid rich people aren't able to tell because they just see $100,000 for a car, and they just go, oh, nice technology and all this sort of stuff, and they get sort of blindsided by it because what you're doing is you're basically selling them a cheap enough car, as cheap as you can make it, but you're making it luxury style. So what that does is it makes people go, oh, and they accept a higher price tag instead of just saying, oh, we're making an electric car. If you said we're making an electric car and you priced it at $70,000, no one's going to be able to afford that. The rich aren't going to buy it either because they don't see the point of buying it it's just a low-end car, But if you say, oh, it's $100,000, but it's luxury, then obviously you've cut off your lower market completely. Now they're definitely not going to buy the product because now there's no point at all buying because you're not even pretending to service their needs. So now they don't. Now they'd be buying stuff that they wouldn't even. Anyway, the point is they don't have the money. So only rich people are able to buy it now. So that's sort of my point. It's
I agree with you. I think the problem is more the system. I don't want to live in a system where somebody like him, as eccentric as him, I have no problem with eccentrics. I just don't think that we should have eccentrics worth more than the GDPs of small countries. I think that's probably an unwise way for humanity to proceed. If you want to just be a garden variety millionaire, worth $30-40 million, fine, knock yourself out. But no,
30-40 is a bit high.
The runaway rich and the political implications of it are very, very dangerous. I quite like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban made $5-6 billion. He bought a.
Isn't Mark Cuban didn't he go and he supported a fraudulent cryptocurrency or something like that?
A basketball team, and now he's basically kind of just unemployed. He just goes on TV,
scam
Shark Tank. He does podcast interviews, and he seems to enjoy life. I think that's probably a wise move. I'm always a bit circumspect of somebody who's made that much money, is still hustling and still hungry for more.
But
even when they're worth $250 billion, which
but
is
isn't Mark Cuban
Elon Musk is worth now?
Sorry I'm late. The Alliance war took me and my members longer than expected.
For God's sake.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said that he won't be attending the.
So yeah, that was Elon Musk's little situation there. So basically, I don't necessarily agree with environment every single point they were making. Not great. I think Michael might not understand that there are actually definitions when it comes to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. There just are definitions. There's no, it's not the usual thing. It's no, it's just not the thing at all. Buying a company is not the same as coming up with an idea, if I said to, Novara Media, I got $1 billion and I want to buy your company off you, am I coming up with the idea for Novara Media? I'm fucking not. I'm purchasing it. Obviously, I don't have £1 billion. Sorry. if you're watching Novara Media and you think I was offering, I actually don't have that money. But you know what I mean? I'm just saying, inherently, you wouldn't go, oh, yeah, Elon invented Twitter. It's like, no. No, they didn't invent Twitter. They didn't invent the idea of a social network site where you post stuff on a tweet. No, purchased it. Let's just get that straight. Purchasing is not the same as actively inventing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please do go ahead. Usually Novara Media generally have better takes than this, so do go ahead and subscribe to them and all that sort of stuff. Ring the bells and all those things. Thank you for watching, and if you want to check all those things, there's the link should be in the description, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.